Good evening, everyone. This is the 15th of December edition of the stocks discussion with me, Zhong Liang. We are going to look at very briefly on STI index, how is it doing, and then we're going to talk about some interesting stocks that I think that it may move later. Okay, so basically we are going to look at the movement of STI, where you can see from the indicator over here, the moving average, 20-day moving average, the STI has been consolidating along this line. And if you were to look at the indicators on stochastic, it tends to look bullish, because STI actually had a nice breakout yesterday. But today there are some profit-taking action where you start to see that some of the stocks has fallen uh, and has traded lower during the daytime. But some of the stocks do close nicely. And for those who have been following my emails sent by my Gmail, okay, the zl.tradergroup at 168@gmail.com. Okay, I did highlight the CapitaLand on Monday. And this counter has actually done quite well today because it went lower but closed higher. So the uptrend remains intact, but of course not to be too happy as yet because it is still uh, in the midst of moving upward higher. And if it cannot move towards 341 immediately, it may retest this support level, which is the previous resistance at 320 as support, and then rebound from there. Okay, so we should have a keep a close eyes on how CapitaLand will move. Well, the other counter, which is its counterpart, has a slightly different type of chart. Okay, while CapitaLand has broken out, we see that city development hasn't broken out from its major resistance at 807. And interestingly, if you look at city development, connecting all the higher lows together, we can see that it is forming an ascending triangle and tending for this counter to hit back 807 and then break out from it. And one thing that you may also want to take note is coincidentally, if you look at today, there was an early sell down. It opened lower, it traded lower. Let me just zoom in over here. So it actually traded and touched the uptrend line and rebounded from there. Okay, so this may be a clue that it can test 8.07. So if it really tests 8.07, it is really a good chance for this counter to move higher. If you follow my email, my original profit target level is actually 8.66. From the ascending triangle, we can actually do a price projection as well. So from here, you can measure the potential upside. So if it coincide with 8.66, means that there is a high chance that this counter uh, is likely to go there. So from this projection, it actually is much higher, 8.81. So meaning to say, from now, we can still expect 8.66 target as a more realistic target first. And having talked about the targets, we also need to bring ourselves back where city development has to touch 8.07 and break out from it. Okay. The other counters that I'd like to share with you, AEM. Right, if you look at the counters over here, today we see there's some rebound and the volume has actually increased, right, higher than its previous few days of trading sessions. In fact, higher than the days that it had been sell down. So when we look at the technical indicators, we can start to see that MACD is actually going higher, stochastic is going higher, but most importantly is it has gone above the 20-day MA, and if tomorrow it can close above its 50-day MA, then we have a high chance for it to retest the 365 100-day MA resistance, which is confluencing with its horizontal resistance zone. So you can see that this resistance zones 367 to rather 363 to 367, where it confluence with the 100-day MA. So this is a very strong resistance zone for AEM. So we can see a potential for it to go there. Why? Because we do see a higher low over here. So this is the first low, the second low, higher low. And once it move there, then we potentially may see uptrend. So let's see how AEM close tomorrow. Definitely, it looks like it has a chance to move there. Okay, so keep a fingers crossed. And Franken, today it has a very strong move, and it broke past its resistance at 1.20. Okay, remember a few weeks ago for the past video recorded or the Zoom live meeting, we discussed about the rectangle patterns over here, where we expect this Franken to break out. So it actually broke out from its rectangle patterns over this day, and it slowly consolidate its movement and eventually have a strong breakout over here. Now, of course, later when I go through UMS and Valuetronic, you will find that actually not all the counters has succeeded in breaking away from its rectangle pattern. But nevertheless, at least Franken is one of them. And as I mentioned the other time, when the counter broke out, I actually took a position in Franken. And of course, my original target, I did highlight in my email as well. So my original target was 1.26. So it's very close right now, and very close to this 1.26 level. And if it can break out from there, we may see even more higher action. Okay, so before counting the eggs, whether the egg will hatch or how many eggs has hatched, I'll just continue to watch how Franken would trade for the next few days as well. Okay, so only when I truly take profit, then the money is hot in my pocket. Okay, UMS this afternoon, I actually had some shout out to some of my clients who actively talk to me through WhatsApp, and and I was alerting them that UMS has actually pierced above its 20-day MA. Now, if you look at UMS, why do I highlight UMS? If you look at this counter, you realize that this counter has rebounded from the confluence of this 100-day and 50-day MA over here. And the piercing of the 20-day MA actually has a very encouraging sign to tell us that, hey, the counter potentially is moving up, and the volume has increased as well. So the MACD and stochastic has been strong as well. Okay, so the counter definitely looks okay, but a bit that today the closing it's a bit disappointing because it closed at 1.03. So I was hoping that it closed at 1.04 so that it gives us a high chance or a clue to tell us that it may go back and test 1.08 resistance. But nevertheless, it's not end of the world yet. Stochastic still remains strong. MACD is still positive. We shall see that if this counter can eventually goes above 1.04, 1.05, then 1.08 may be tested again. So if you were to revisit the rectangle that I mentioned, in fact, UMS is still within the rectangle, not as strong as Franken. So we've got to wait a little bit longer, okay, for UMS. Similarly for Valuetronics, it does also have a rectangle pattern over here, but the breakout wasn't that successful. But the good sign here is it broke out, it retested the previous resistance support confluence with the 20-day MA support. And this is a good sign today because it rebounded and closed higher. So the next thing is it must go back and test its resistance at 61 cents and break out from there. then we can see more upside. Indicators are bullish. So with all this sign, there might be another run for the tech sectors in the market. Okay, so if this is the sign, then we must see follow through buying. We must see resistance breaks. So for Valuetronics, we want to see a 61 cent tested, broken. Okay, like Franken. Then UMS, we like to see 108 tested, broken. Then we can see more upside. And then for AEM, of course, 3.63, 3.67 zone, where it has to enter into this zone and break up from there. Then we can see a healthy recovery. So for the time being, for those who are interested in these tech counters, there are still chance. Either if you were to wait for it to break up from resistance, or if tomorrow the price is still around, like for example, Valuetronic 595, UMS about 104, 105, and AEM about 350. Right, these are the chance for you to take up a small position. Okay, now I'd like to revisit Singtel right now. Okay, so Singtel, as the last week recording, I mentioned that at this point Singtel looks attractive because it is at its 200-day MA. So I actually mentioned that we can actually proportion our entry 3 times. So let's say I'm going to buy 10,000 share, I buy 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, or 3,005, 3,005, 3,005, something like that. Okay, so here I was tempted to add a position, but the next day it doesn't look very tempting. Why? Because it start to it didn't actually after opening it start to move a little bit higher for a while, then it start to go lower. Okay, so normally I don't place my trade right at the beginning of the market. I tend to let it settle down at about 10:30, then I start to look at the market. So if there's no movement yet, as you know, Singapore most of the time, some of the stocks no movement at all, then afternoon then I'll look at it. Like for example, today UMS, the movement came in the afternoon about 1:30 to 2 p.m. And so Singtel start to break below its MA and trade below the MA. So now it looks like a better pricing to enter into Singtel. Okay, no doubt that it's below its MA support right now. It still have a support to look at, which is the 230 support rate, which it almost touched there and then rebounded. So the MACD and the stochastic has already turned bullish, and today has ended as a hammer. So the next day is we need Singtel to go above this MA, close above it with a white candle. Then this is where we can start to see the rise of Singtel, where it may go back up to a 260 level. Okay, so this is in fact a good chance for Singtel to rebound off from this support level to form some good charts for traders. Okay, and if you look at these other counters like the oil and gas counters I mentioned last week. So Keppel Corp, as highlighted previously from this hammer, it had been quite positive so far. So it went up as high as 530, 33 yesterday, and then today, right, it found support at the 200-day MA and the 20-day MA and closed higher. So the closing is very encouraging. So for those who are holding Keppel Corp, you may want to hold longer and see whether it can touch the 5.47 level. Okay, and with MACD and stochastics looking healthy, I think there is a chance. Unfortunately for Sembcorp Marine, it doesn't look that positive, right? Because Sembcorp Marine couldn't break above its downtrend line. For those again follow the email closely, okay, my daily morning dose of emails for you to look at stocks that we're going to highlight or we are looking at. So here you can see you can plot a downtrend line, and we do expect Sembcorp Marine to break out above this downtrend line and this 100-day MA in order to be bullish. But unfortunately, today it breaks down. It pierced below 20-day MA, and the volume is extremely high. So something is in fact wrong with this counter, but there isn't any news. So is it a flush out, or is this something that we didn't know, or is something that we didn't know is coming? So I do note that stochastic is still crossing up. So it's a bit weird phenomenon over here. So nevertheless, we shall keep a lookout on how San Marine will go going forward, because right, this counter it's popular among our trading community. Okay, then last but not least, let me just touch on some of the counters that may interest you, like for example the gloves sectors that a lot of people had had been interested in and then vested in. So just in case if I miss any counters that you would like me to go through, or one some of my uh, 2 cents worth, you can actually WhatsApp me. Then I will actually discuss it from there, or I will cover it in my next video. Okay. So we start off with Riverstone. As you can see, these are the arrows that I plotted last week, and I mentioned over here that there's some rebound, but you still need to do some more. You need to cross above this 200-day MA, and beyond, then it can go higher. So unfortunately, it couldn't couldn't clear its resistance and broke its support. So this counter has a typical behavior where it breaks support without high volume. So it's like killing you softly with its selling. So do not expect high volume breakdown, but instead driving down slowly. It's actually bad enough. And for this counter to uh, move back up, you actually need to go back up above is 220-day MA, which is there's no sign as yet. Okay, because you can see MACD start to turn down, and stochastic goes back its oversold region. So the downtrend is still persisting. So I tend to avoid this counter for the time being. Then we have Top Gloves. So Top Gloves announced results just a few days ago. Can't remember which day. The result was fantastic. It was telling us that it makes quite a fair bit of profits from the sales of its gloves. And at this particular day, I think, oh yeah, it was on the 11th of December. The day before it was 10. So it announced result during the intraday or something like that. So around this 10 or 11. So so I was replying to one of the question from my client. He was asking, so what do I think that Top Glove, the better entry price would be? I take a look at the chart, and then I see that, okay, if Top Gloves cannot go above, or cannot stay above 231, then the chances of it going up is very little. Okay, so no doubt it came through. So it actually broke down. It got down to 223, and then went much lower. So the again, the if you look at the whole picture, so the last time we thought that it negated this descending triangle over here. Okay, and it may start to change the trend. So when you negate by this long white candle, so we thought there was hope. But unfortunately, it did not follow through its buying, and now it's back. So judging by the type of movement here, so I will just do an average. So you can still see the descending triangle is, or the overall bearish ness is still there. Why? Because of the lower highs. And once it breaks down from this 2.10 level, which is very critical, then we may see more downside to this 200-day MA. So look at the bigger picture, or it looks like a huge double top patterns over here. So it is actually a big caution to us that probably we want to stay away from this counter for the time being. UG healthcare, it's similar. You can see it is pretty weak as it breaks down, goes lower. But the only difference is today's candle. So today's candle, you can see that UG find itself holding above the 200-day MA, forms a hammer, stochastic turn positive with bullish divergence, potential of bullish divergence. So will UG Healthcare lead the rest of the gloves counter to go up? So it's a pretty tough call, I would say, because the whole sector is actually not in play. So to try to counter trend is a bit tough. So probably I would say that maybe this only deserve 1% of my whole capital allocation. Meaning to say, if I have 30,000 to trade, I will just use 1% of this 30,000 to buy some into UG Healthcare if it has confirmation, and then see where is it going. But of course, I'm a low risk taker lah. Yeah, and MedTech. MedTech today looks healthy. Try to break below the 20 MA. Okay, but we covered well, close higher. So the last week when I covered the video, I was so excited because it is actually the first day of a rebound where it forms this long white candle, but the next day didn't follow through. So I thought it was not natural. So, but the next few days, even worse, it actually turns back down. So it is actually not very encouraging to see a lower high. But today, if it can start something, and then tomorrow or next few days go back to the high at 104 and even break out from there, then something may change. So again, for MedTech, maybe another 1% of the portfolio, or I mean, okay, maybe 1% is too little, maybe 5%, 5% of the capital allocation, 5% each. So that will make up to be like what $1,500 worth of this. So these are the maximum risk that I'm willing to risk, $3,000 worth, for example. Okay, so but I'm not having said that, I'm not encouraging anybody to take out a position. It's just that I will still want to see how the next day the stocks behave. Is there any sign of buying, or the stock still weak on the trade summary, and see whether the daily chart, is there any buy up, sell down, this kind of action observation I will take. So just keep a close eyes on it. So if you're interested, of course, you can ping me, then we can look at it together and do a quick analysis, a short one-liner, two-liner discussion over it. Okay, so so tomorrow I'll be focusing on probably the tech sectors. If tonight the US market close positive, Nasdaq is strong, so tomorrow the tech sectors, the smaller cap probably is going to continue higher. Unfortunately, the big cap like venture, it looks like it's forming descending triangle. It's a potential breaking down action. So if venture breaks below 1864, right, we may see it actually has a projection target to about 1770. So it's about there. Okay, so tomorrow I'll be looking at Singtel as well, and then going at this city development. So remember the ascending triangle, and yeah, anything you find interesting, you can still WhatsApp me. Okay, so with this, thank you for viewing the video. Take care and see you next week.